it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I am your host, Jimmy Murphy. He is Pierre McGuire. And we are ready to tee up Game 5 with the Panthers and Rangers shortly. We're going to be joined by Mollie Walker of New York Post, who joined us last week and was great here. And we're looking forward to speaking to her again. But before we do that, Pierre, let's look back on last night. Very interesting game there. It looks maybe, like Dallas is going to take a 3-1 series lead, but the Edmonton Oilers show a ton of resilience. Their penalty kill continues to be brilliant out there, Pierre, and they have now knotted that series up at 2 as it heads back to Dallas.
Everybody was riding Darnell Nurse. I think he had 12 hits in the game, so he showed up to play, obviously, after a tough start in game number 4. You can say what you want about their forwards. You can say what you want about their skill, and you can say what you want about their speed. Last night was a character win for Edmonton. It wasn't about anything else but character. Those guys cared. They were blocking shots. They were hitting people. They were playing unselfishly. Stuart Skinner, people forget this because it's convenient now. When the score was 2-0 in the game, Dallas had a breakaway and an odd man opportunity.
Yes.
Stuart Skinner shut the door twice.
Yep.
Instead of being 4-0, game over, it's 2-0. And then they respond and come back. So, like I said, it's all people can say anything they want about the game. I totally respect it, but that was a character. That was a total character win.
I'm so glad you say that about Skinner there and those 2 stops there, because it made me think back, and I was watching, and I immediately went back to 2013, that famous Game 7 Bruins-Leafs. They're trailing 4-1. And I don't know, I want to say with maybe 8:37, I think it was left. I was looking back at my notes last night. I don't have it right in front of me. But maybe 8:37 left in the third period. Tuukka Rask stops Nazem Kadri on a big breakaway. And then he made another huge save a minute later. And yet nobody talks about that. It's just sort of, you need to recognize those moments, even though the comeback hasn't happened yet. You need to recognize the moments that lead to it, the moments that present you the opportunity to get back in the game. And I'm glad you did there, Pierre, because Skinner deserves a ton of credit, especially for a guy who's taken his fair share of criticism with the media and the fans.
For sure. And, he's far from being out of this series. There's still the potential for him to have foibles just like any other goalie. But based on last night's the way he gutted it out and the way he showed intestinal fortitude, I think he's going to be a tough guy to knock out of the box the rest of the way. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to win the series, but as an athlete, you're looking at that and you're going, that's impressive. If he didn't mail it in, they're down 2-0, and there's trepidation in that building. There's a whole lot of nervous energy. I just want to say one thing, Jimmy, on the show that Stanley Cup Central, that I have the opportunity to work on every night for the National Hockey League on the YouTube channel. I said that before the game started, I was really concerned about the Edmonton Oilers because of the press conference that happened earlier in the day. And I thought Connor McDavid, we talked about it. I thought Connor handled it great. It reminded me a lot of Bob Gainey when not only he was the captain of the Canadiens, but when he was a GM of the Canadiens, standing up for a teammate, standing up for the organization. I was surprised. I was really surprised at the intensity of the questions. I was surprised at the negativity of the questions. And I was surprised that the team, with all the experience they have around them, actually allowed the players to go to a podium. I'm just telling you right now, I've been there. I've seen teams do this. Pay the fine, no podium. We're just going to do our head coach and a scrum.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
How about the fact that the starting goalie spoke on the day he's starting? You'd never see that, Pierre.
No, you don't see that. I found it all very strange. I don't know why that happened. I think down the road somebody will obviously say something. And I'm not knocking any of the guys asking questions. They got a job to do too, especially if you're going to create that kind of a marketplace.
Yep.
Where you're going to invite everybody into a podium situation. Podium's way different than scrums. Jimmy, would you explain?
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
It's a way different deal.
For sure. It's in scrums. It's how do I'm trying to explain a difference here, Pierre. I'd say like, so you see when the questions were so direct and there's the focus is on the two players right there up on the podium. Mm-hmm. You don't have that as much in a scrum, Pierre. It's more casual. It's more, they can kind of slide and move to the next question a lot easier than they could if they're up there with a mic in front of them on a table in front of the whole media right there and all those cameras. It's a lot easier to skirt around questions in a scrum than it is in a podium.
Well said. That's perfect. That's professional the way you described it. So I agree. That's why I was surprised. I was surprised by that. I really was.
All right. Here's one thing I want to say, Pierre. And since I saw his comments, we're going to play the clip in a second here. But Kevin Bieksa last night took a real shot at the Edmonton media. Now, immediately the media in me took offense. And I, was in my head like, screw him. We're doing our job. We're supposed to ask questions. Are we supposed to throw softballs to you all the time? So immediately I'm getting in a defense mechanism, thinking as a reporter there. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to take a step back and put myself in the shoes of the player, or the skates of the player, rather, in this case, and think of it that way. And I see where he's coming from. And I do have empathy, and I have empathy for the players who have to deal with us, especially in the playoffs, especially in a market like Toronto or Edmonton or Montreal, where, it's constant controversy. It's every reporter's looking for one little sentence to blow up into a big story. I get it. So I get both sides, but I just want to play this clip here. And then I want you to tell me if you think he was a little too harsh with what he said here. So let's play the clip from Kevin Bieksa.
Nerves. You think about his day, his morning. He gets to the rink and he has to meet with the Edmonton meat. That's what I call the media because they're raw, dead, and dumb. And he has to answer questions about his play.
We're raw, dead, and dumb. That's a little harsh. It's harsh.
Yeah, no, listen, he's got an opinion. He's got a strong opinion. I don't take away anybody's ability to have an opinion.
Exactly.
I like to have opinions too. And you know what? I just like being fair. I was surprised, and that's why I'm coming transparent on this. I didn't know Kevin said that till this morning. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you what I said before our show started.
Right.
Not halfway through our show, before the show started, and why I thought Edmonton would have a bad start. I didn't go after the media. I went after the team. I'm shocked. I'm still surprised. I've worked for some really good coaches and some great GMs. They wouldn't tolerate that.
Let me ask you this, Pierre. Do you think, and this is just hypothetically speaking, we're just taking guesses here as to why they handled it the way they did. Do you wonder maybe that they wanted to do that to prevent any of the media out there saying that their players aren't being accountable, that they're not facing the music, saying, look, here we are, fire away, we're going to handle it, and we're going to move on and on to the game. Do you think maybe that was the thinking?
I don't know if it was or wasn't, but this is why I asked you the question about scrum versus podium.
Yeah.
You could have had your players available in a scrum. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
they put their starting goalie on a podium.
Yeah, I've never seen that in my life on a game.
That's a different deal. I'm just telling you.
I just want to tell our listeners too and our viewers that don't know, what it's like on a game day. When you go in after a morning skate, you go in the locker room. It's just understood that the starting goalie is not going to talk at that time. He'll talk to you after the game, usually, but he's not going to talk before start on the day of the game. And that's usually why he's not even in his stall by the time we get in there. But if he is there, you can't even really, a lot of teams will get ticked off if you even go up and just shooting the breeze with them. Like, hey, how's the kids? What's going on? Did you see that game last night? They don't even let you do that. So what Pierre is saying is absolutely right. Like to go from that to being upset when you're just kind of shooting the breeze to putting a guy front and center on the night he's starting, I've never seen that before.
I was really surprised. I mean, since 1991, I've been in almost every Stanley Cup final as a participant.
Yeah.
Whether it was as a coach or as a broadcaster. So I'm just telling you.
It was
really different. I really did.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. But that being said, I love the way they handled it on the ice, Pierre. And I'll tell you, if you were to go into last night's game thinking, okay, if Edmonton's going to win this game and tie this series up, they're really going to need their power play to get going, or are they going to need their penalty kill to be huge? You would immediately probably say the power play, because that's usually what we know the Edmonton Oilers for, with all the skill they have. Here, they've only let in one power play goal in 23 tries now.
Yeah.
That's
What Dallas is doing really well is 5-on-5. They're not doing it well, but 5 versus 4 on the penalty kill. They're taking away Bouchard as an option, and they're taking away Draisaitl as an option. And I remember during the Vancouver series, you and I talked about it. If they don't overplay on Draisaitl, most of the time it was Ian Cole. If he doesn't overplay on Draisaitl, Draisaitl is going to shred Vancouver, and eventually he did. And it's the same thing with Bouchard. So they got to take away 2 assets. They got to take away Draisaitl, and they got to take away Bouchard. And if they do that, which they've kind of done so far, their penalty kill will be successful.
all right. Well, we'll get back to that series later on. Let's bring in our good friend Mollie Walker from the New York Post to tee up Game 5 between the New York Rangers and the Florida Panthers over at Madison Square Garden. Mollie, you made it home. Any flight delays, safe travels? Everything was smooth?
This is me knocking on wood. Everything was very smooth.
All
Doesn't
right.
always happen that way,
No.
and Florida is always a great host.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Listen, Mollie, coming away, you have some time to sort of think about what you saw in Game 4 when you're traveling yesterday. What's some of the biggest takeaways you've had over the last 24 to 36 hours since that game ended?
How much defense the Rangers have had to play in the last 2 games specifically. Caved in on shots, and Rangers star players not producing is probably the 3 major takeaways that I've had through the first 4 games, honestly. I mean, the Rangers, they're opportunistic. They have Igor Shesterkin. Their depth has been on full display. Barclay Goodrow, 3 goals. Alexis Lafreniere just continuing this breakout season and carrying the production when you got guys like Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad still without a point, Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox without a goal. That's really a huge sticking point for this Rangers team. It's hard to imagine them pulling out 2 more wins if they can't get their top guys going and start playing a little bit more offense and not defending as much as they have been.
Yeah. Mollie, do you find that they're struggling with the physicality of Florida?
No, because the Rangers can play that way too, and they have been. I mean, you see Jacob Trouba getting the fine, but as he and Peter Laviolette pointed out, the Rangers have to play that way. That's how the Panthers play, on a shift-to-shift basis, and they're not gonna be able to win this series if they don't match that physicality. And I do think that that the Rangers have been able to give it back at times, but it's tough to compare because the Panthers are mean. The Panthers are mean every shift. And that's what makes them such a tough opponent. I think every single shift out there looks strenuous for this Rangers team, but not in a way that they can't handle, in a way that you're just like, they're battling through it. That's the best that you can do against this Panthers team.
You know, a couple times during the Bruins playoff run, and even in the season, Mollie, you know, obviously they had a great tandem in Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. And then Swayman in the playoffs. You know, I had this conversation happen a couple times in the press box with the media up there saying, you know, do we think that maybe the Bruins are relying too much on their goalie because the goalie has been so good, because the goalie has stolen games from them? Is it sort of a subconscious thing to say, hey, if I don't do this, he's going to clean it up for me? Do you see, I mean, obviously you can't tell, you're not in their heads, but do you think that's possible sometimes where a team can just say, hey, we got him back there, so if I make this mistake, he's going to cover it up?
I don't even think that it's a conscious, line of thought, I guess. And it's difficult to say that because this has been the Rangers for years, dating back to Henrik Lundqvist, so even Chris Kreider, who is the last remaining guy of really the 2 generations of Rangers teams, I guess, that we've seen most recently. Goaltending is part of the team.
So it should be
Rangers have nothing to apologize in that department, and that has become part of their DNA. They do they do have that luxury, especially when it comes to goaltending. And this year, going from Jonathan Quick and Igor Shesterkin, they got it from both guys. So it's a luxury that this Rangers team has had, and they're one of these teams that you compare to the rest of the league when what happens when you invest in really great goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
When you're around the team as much as you are, you hear a lot of the scuttlebutt. So this is one question that I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
This player in the Florida Panthers is driving the New York Ranger players nuts.
Not that I've even been told from any of the guys in the room, but just watching myself, Ryan Lomberg. I mean, even though he didn't play in the last game, it must be an injury that's keeping him out, because I cannot even imagine. Yeah. I cannot even imagine why he would be taken out otherwise, because I feel like he's been such a factor. He knocked Jimmy Vesey out of this series with an absolute bruising hit. But he's like a little, like he's just packs a lot of punch in such a little frame, and he plays that way. If just from my vantage point, he looks like such a pest, man.
Jimmy said,
"Devil."
Jimmy, you just got to tell our viewers, we don't rehearse this with Molly. This is what we've been talking about with Molly.
Off the air.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. That's so funny.
It's all done by you, Molly. We completely.
Great minds think alike. That's why we have you on.
That's why we like having you on.
Molly, just going back to what you said, answering our first question there, just about the big guys having to step up. And I saw you reposted this from Megan Chaika, who's working with Pierre on Stanley Cup Central. She tweeted earlier, with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider on the ice at 5-on-5 this series, the Rangers have spent more time in the D zone and less time in the O zone with the puck on their sticks than the previous 2 rounds. The results have shown it's been 0 goals and only 4 scoring chances. So there you go. I mean, that stat says it all right there.
It really does. The top 6 is just so important to their offense, and at the same time, the power play as well. I mean, the power play is just when it actually did look a lot better in Game 4. Obviously, Trocheck scored, but it's such a huge part of who they are, and they do get a lot of momentum from that. But I mean, through the first 2 rounds, and aside from maybe the final 2 games of the Carolina series. That Rangers power play bullied their opponents. You want to talk about bullying? Yeah. It wasn't anything physical. It was just the way that it was automatic for them. Yeah. It was unstoppable. And they went 7-0 when their power play is going that way. I mean, granted, I know the Capitals, it's not nearly the same competition, but even still, it's hard in the playoffs. And the power play is such a big part of who they are. And those 2 guys you just mentioned, Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, are on the power play. And when they're not, getting anything going, getting any confidence from being on the power play, I'm sure it is tough to carry it over into a 5-on-5 play.
Do you see more ice time for Matt Rempe?
Well, he has been he's starting to get some third period shifts. Yeah. He's got a couple of shifts in overtime. And that's he has had to. He is in Peter Laviolette. There comes a point where you just got to snip the strings and just let the kid fly. Just let him go. I know the playoffs are no place to be learning, but clearly things are different when he's in the lineup. You want to go over the analytics and stuff like that and what he actually brings, especially at home. It's different. He brings something. He brings a factor to the building. He brings a factor to the ice, and the Rangers look like a better team with him in it. So at that point, you just have to let him go. And I think Peter Laviolette is starting to trust him a little bit more. He hasn't gotten crazy burned or anything like that. But again, that's how he's going to learn. That's say welcome to the National Hockey League.
We spoke to John Bartlett yesterday from Sportsnet, Molly, and we were talking about Adam Fox, and he's got to be battling something. I mean, you covered him all year. How different does he look than a normal Adam Fox that you saw throughout the year?
It's just not moving as well. And I think that's a huge factor on the power play as well. And we've actually seen Peter Laviolette try to combat that by having Fox come off early. And Eric Gustafsson sometimes hops over the board and joins that first power play unit. And Gustafsson has been making a bit more of an impact, if you ask me, because of he's healthy. it looks like he's 100% healthy, and it clearly looks like something is hindering Adam Fox right now, and it's not allowing him to move as well as he usually does. I do think he looked better in the last 2 games, so hopefully he is on the ups on that, and maybe we can see him start to make his mark on this series, because he's another guy. He's a points machine, and the Rangers are going to need him to be that.
How's your buddy Ryan Lindgren holding up?
A new gash under his eye. He's got stitches right on the corner of his nose here. It's almost become a running joke for me with him. Just every day. How many stitches on that one, huh? it's a daily question for Ryan Lindgren and myself. So, but that's who he is. And the other part of the joke is I say flea bite, right? Flea bite. He always says, yeah.
I'm dating Pierre and I here. I don't know if you've seen him. I would imagine, since you're a hockey reporter, you have. Do you ever see Slapshot?
Of course.
All
Please
right.
don't insult me.
All right, good.
Oh, Molly, I'm just telling you right now, we have an internal fine system. I'm going to fine him for that.
Yeah, I should be fine. You know what? He reminds me of Dave Killer Carlson when he was starting off, starting to become the tough guy. That's what he looks like right now.
Yeah.
The guy
Dave's
looks
a
like
killer. No, Dave's a mess.
Dave's a mess.
Ryan looks like and acts like he eats nails for breakfast.
Oh, it's crazy.
Like that's who he is, and the Rangers need guys like that. It's going to be interesting what happens with him, because he's coming up on a new deal soon, and he is such an important part of this team. I mean, you look at the record with him in the lineup and without him in the lineup, and it is quite glaring. So the Rangers are going to have to find a way to keep him around. Especially, he also makes Adam Fox a better player too, and I think they're very, very comfortable together.
Players that don't get big offensive numbers, they're not that difficult to negotiate contracts with. I'm telling you, this will not.
I agree with you. I will say I've liked Ryan Lindgren's game in this playoffs. The last few games or so, he's looking a lot more like an offensive defenseman. He had a wraparound play. Someone knocked it in. It might have been in the overtime. He's had some pretty good plays in this playoffs.
I'm not arguing with you, but I can just tell you, when it comes to comparables, it's not going to be a difficult negotiation.
Yeah.
It is in New York Rangers. Molly, what's easier for you to do, a podium interview or a scrum interview? And which one do you prefer the most?
Well, if you're asking me honestly, when the whole scrum thing, especially if you're talking about like a practice day, I'll get in on the scrum, and then I'm asking questions myself afterward when everybody goes away.
Well done. Well done.
That's the competitiveness of it, and obviously in the world that we're in now with PR, when they try to cut, I just ask the player, okay, I got a couple extra, and because I'm around every day, I think it helps with their willingness to give me a couple extra questions. But it comes down, I'm asking different questions than everybody else, and I don't want everybody else to get to benefit from what I'm asking about. So
Jimmy, let me just throw this at Molly. Yeah. Molly, you know why they stay and take your questions? I'm going to tell you, as a guy that reads your column all the time, because you're firm, but you're fair.
Thank you, Pierre. I try to be.
No, that matters a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you were not that, if you were firm and unfair, Molly, I got something else to do.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Yep.
No, it's a lot of it's about building relationships. A lot of it is, and in certain situations, like I'm not going to ask a player about, for example, feeling like he got demoted on camera. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to him, but I'll ask him myself and for my content, because that's what's fair.
That's Jimmy. This is what Molly's coming on every week.
Well, I know. Here, where she graduated from. I mean, enough said.
Yeah, I mean, like we were
surprising.
The same. We were educated the same. Shout out UMass.
Yep.
Send your kids to the UMass journalism program, and I will be calling them for their percentage of the tuition that I get them.
I'll tell you what.
That sounds like a good plan to me.
There we go. I tell you this too, and Pierre knew him. The late Russ Conway, Hall of Fame writer, would always tell me, and it was so right. He was so correct. Always talk to the healthy scratches. Always. Oh my goodness. Always go up to them when they're sitting alone. Nobody wants to talk to them. They're always going up to the stars. talk to the guys that everybody doesn't want to talk to every day and form a relationship with them, and you'll be surprised the stuff you'll learn. And he was right.
One of the guys that I have some of the best, rapport with is Louis Domingue. He's a third string goalie. But I asked him about, when he's serving as a Black Ace coming up, he had to leave Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
They battled to get into the playoffs, and then he had to come up and play with a team he hasn't been with really at all, and leave his team that he was playing a majority of goal, during the playoffs. And that's a story right there, for how much we have to write. That's a story. So.
One thing he'll tell you, the hotels are better in the NHL, and the per diem envelope's a lot fatter in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It makes it okay. But no, actually, to that point, it was funny because I talked to both him and Adam Edstrom. And Adam Edstrom, younger guy, obviously, is, he had a few games in the NHL this season. And he was very much so thinking about his future. I'm happy to be here, see how things go in the playoffs. Louis Domingue obviously has been on playoff runs, been in the NHL. He's been in this. He's a veteran. So for him, he actually talked about, he was more upset about it. Actually, he was more like, no, it is tough. It is tough. That's my team. That's who I've been with all year. And it's tough to see them keep going without me. So it was really interesting to see the two players' perspective, two different players in their respective careers.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. So game 5 starts. You're Peter Laviolette. What's one key thing you're telling your team to do right off the bat?
Just shoot a lot more and look for offense. They can't be in their own end as much as they've been. That's the number one thing. They got to figure out how to get out of their zone faster. They got to figure out how to get up the ice and transition better, because the Panthers are just disrupting so much of what the Rangers are doing and just pounding it back into their zone. So they gotta make quicker decisions with the puck. They gotta be more, authoritative and more definitive with what they're doing, because they're getting caved a bit right now.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say to that was a good response from Mollie. They've got to get better center ice support. The centers have to come way down. Florida's pinching down the strong side every single time because they got their third forward back. So you just got to go D to the center or D to D right to the center. You can't be coming up the wall because the strong side D is pinching all the time. Don't be afraid to move the puck through the middle of the ice as long as you know you got down low support, because that's the only way they're going to break it. I'm telling you, I've been watching this series like Mollie and you have, Jimmy. And I feel bad for those D-men because they're getting crushed.
I do.
They are
getting hammered.
Yeah.
And that's why I was wondering, Mollie, my concern for the fatigue factor is we're getting deep in the series now.
100%. But Rangers finished the first round in 4. They had a week off.
True.
Then they had 6. Then they had another week off. I do think that they have a couple guys that are banged up, and that obviously big guys too. Yeah. So I think that that's definitely having a factor. But the team as a whole, that's why you got Alexis Lafreniere looks like he's got no off button. Yeah, I think he had one off game in the last 4, but for a majority, he's making it happen. He's having a great time, and he looks great. Yep. So I think that, a majority of teams should have their legs. They put themselves in this position. They should have and the way that Laviolette has this team conditioned, they should be good in that department.
We will see what happens. And I'm glad you brought him up. I think besides Shesterkin, he's been their best player. Easy.
And Trocheck. Can't forget Trocheck. Trocheck too. Trocheck is right there. I mean, Trocheck has been producing at such a consistent rate this entire postseason for them. And then right behind him, I think, is Alexis Lafreniere, who's having a great playoffs after a breakout regular season, and that backhander, man. I haven't called it his. I put it in. I wrote signature, and then I took it back maybe a couple more times, and then I'll give it because it's becoming signature. The way he gets the puck at the very tip of the stick and is able to flick it wherever he wants to. It's a thing of beauty. It really is.
He talked at all about being angry at the Florida Panthers for not having any interest in him?
Alexi?
No, I'm talking about Trocheck, sorry.
Trocheck's so not the person to look back. Yeah, and also, I mean, Florida, it was such a long time ago for him, but I actually remember talking to Larry about it, my colleague Larry Brooks, and he was saying to me how shocked he was when Florida gave him up. Like that, he remembers thinking, "What do you mean? Like what do you mean you're giving up Vincent Trocheck?" So I imagine that they might be kicking themselves now a little bit because he's been great. I mean, I don't really know exactly the nuances in Carolina, but it's kind of the same deal. I mean, like, I think he wanted to come to a place like New York, but what a valuable player he's been. And he's brought, we talked about Jonathan Quick. Vincent Trocheck is right there with the team camaraderie. He lives in Pittsburgh. Every time they go to Pittsburgh, his grandparents have the whole team, big feast every single time. He took in Will Cooley. Will Cooley came in as a rookie, made the team at a training camp, and he's been living with Vincent Trocheck and his family. He plays mini sticks with Trocheck's kids in their living room. So it's good stuff.
Awesome. Well, Mollie, we appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy. You got to get to the rink. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll have you on again soon.
So good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Join us from the New York Post, talking Rangers and Panthers here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Pierre, I'm with her on that. I think, and you put it best. The way they've got to solve that forecheck. They have to, if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible.
That's possible. It is. And if you do break it, you're going to get them disconnected. That's the new term now. You're not connected. I'm going to just go newfangled and say you'll get them disconnected because they're not used to teams doing that. But the only way you can really break that forecheck, you got to go D to D quick, or you got to go D to the middle right away. You can't keep the puck up the boards because you're not going to be able to get out. And if you do get out, you'll be disjointed. So that's the biggest issue. But Mollie was great again. Boy, oh boy, she was outstanding. Really good information, good, solid intel from inside. And she just, the personal way she presents it is really good. It's really, really good.
Great. It's good to have. Good to have. We love having her on. Pierre, before we get to our questions from our listeners and viewers there, I want to just bring up a topic you and I were talking about off air, and that's the ever tricky goalie market, whether it's free agency or via trades, how hard it is to determine one's value on the goalie market. And of course, the team that I cover is going through that right now with one Linus Ullmark, where you've got reports saying that he could go to Ottawa for a first rounder and Jacob Chychrun, or he could go to Carolina for a first rounder and Martin Necas, which I think is insane.
Who's right? Can I just ask you, who wrote that?
Elliot Friedman.
Okay. He wrote that?
He said that they had talks, and he hypothesized, based on Sweeney's comments at the end of the year, that maybe the original trade talks leading to the deadline involved Necas and a first-round pick, which I just think would be highway robbery for the Bruins to get that. Hey, if you're Don Sweeney, you take that in a heartbeat. I just don't see it happening. And, as we discussed, Pierre, and we did a little exercise looking at some goalie trades over the last 5 years. I mean, you can go anywhere from what's considered a 1 or maybe a 1A type goalie getting a 5th-round pick or a first-round pick. Okay. And it's just, as we determined, it's very situational. It's in the eye of the beholder. And there really is no calculation to figure it out until you're right in the moment, I think. So
I asked Jimmy, we did this exercise, and I'm just going to present it to our audience. What do you think Marc-Andre Fleury got on the trade market? What do you think Robin Lehner got on the trade market? What do you think Cam Talbot got on the trade market? What do you think Casey DeSmith, who got traded twice in less than 2 months from Pittsburgh to Montreal and Montreal to Vancouver, what do you think he got for the respective teams he got traded away from? Go look it up.
Yep.
There's no first rounders. There's no first rounders in any of those trades. No. And there are no impact players like Marty Necas.
No.
And that's one other thing that's really important. I know because he hasn't played for a long time in the NHL over years, Linus Ullmark, he's 30 years old.
Yes.
It's not like he's 27. He's 30.
He's 30 years old. And I'll ask this, and I'm not taking a shot at Ullmark. This is just the fact. This is just the facts. What's he ever won in the playoffs? He's never won a playoff round. He struggled mightily in last year in the second half of that Florida series, but then again, so did the team. I'm not going to put that on him, but still, he's never won a playoff round. That's
not unfair to say. I said it about Connor Hellebuck. I said it before the playoffs. I said, look, I think Winnipeg's a good team, but I'm concerned about Connor Hellebuck.
And what happened? And what happened? There we go.
And this is not being mean. Like, we care about these guys. But the reality is, for that position, until you've won with regularity in the playoffs, you can't say that you're a proven winner. Like, I can tell you right now, Jonathan Quick knows how to win in the playoffs.
Exactly.
I can tell you Marc-Andre Fleury knows how to win in the playoffs. You know, and I'd be prepared to say that Aiden Hill, who took his team to a Stanley Cup last year, knows how to win in the playoffs.
Yep. I think Jake Ottinger has entered that category now.
He's getting there.
Yep, he's getting there. You know what I find interesting too, Pierre, and I want to ask you this too, when it comes to goalies, I've always felt, and I feel like this proves it, that you're way better off trading a goalie leading into the deadline than you are in the offseason, because sometimes the teams, like, let's say, for example, Colorado or Edmonton, or even LA, right? They're looking for a solution in the moment. They're looking because they think the goalie is their final piece to get them through the playoffs, to make a push for the cup. So they're desperate. They're living in the moment with that desperation to make it happen. Whereas in the offseason, you can kind of reevaluate. You can look at this and things can change. And maybe you don't have the same perspective you did of your team's potential to make it to the Stanley Cup. And it's not as much urgency. And I look at it this way, Pierre, okay? So Marc-Andre Fleury, when I look back at his trade history, on June 27th, 2021, just 2 days before Fleury won the 2021 Vezina Trophy, he was traded from the Golden Knights to the Blackhawks in exchange for then 23-year-old prospect Mikkel Hakaranian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. I apologize.
And a fifth-round pick.
Fifth-round pick. He is now out of the NHL, playing back in Finland. Not even a year later, Pierre, in the midst of what I'm sure Fleury would admit was an average season for him. He wasn't even at the 500 mark with his record. He had a 2.95 goals against average at the time and a .908 save percentage, and he was 19, 21, and 5. At the 2022 deadline, he goes for his conditional second. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's even despite his record, the need of the team he was going to seemed to justify the value going up. Am I on to something there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
you are.
That's why I don't believe what I'm reading right now about Linus Ullmark, and that's not knocking Ullmark. It's a reflection of the goalie market and how unpredictable it is.
The only thing that would help back up some of what these writers are writing or saying, sometimes if you see a player involved, they're trying to dump money.
Okay.
So in Ottawa's case, you know, that comes with a substantial amount of money on Chychrun.
Exactly.
So if they were able to do that, I could see it. And maybe the way Boston would present it is, we'll take the money, but in order for us to take the money, you got to give us a first-round pick.
Okay.
So that's how the value would come together, if you follow me on that.
Yep.
But I have a hard time stretching that out because, you know, how much, you know, is Boston really going to want to spend that much cap space in that situation on the left side? Defense?
It depends who the player is. I don't think Chychrun's worth spending.
I mean, we know Matt Grzelcyk's not coming back, right?
Yep.
I think we're pretty confident of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that opens up a little bit of space, but not
much.
6 million space.
The other thing too, Pierre, think about it now. I mean, it's no secret that Sweeney's trying to unload him. So when the teams know, you know, you got to get rid of him because you need this money to lock up Swayman, and you can't afford to have that much money between the pipes. I almost feel like Sweeney's lost his leverage.
Not yet. I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right.
Yet. So because Carolina's going to need goaltending. New Jersey, I think, is going to have to look at goaltending. Yeah. Toronto is going to have to look at goaltending. I know Ottawa's got Anton Forsberg. They obviously have Korpisalo. And they've got the two kids I told you about yesterday, Levi Marilainen and also Matt Sogard, coming up through their system. And they're both very good prospects. They were good draft picks by Trent Mann and his staff. Trent's now working in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And so there's teams that are going to need goaltending. You know, we haven't even talked about Colorado. Now, part of what makes Ullmark a little different is that no trade situation and team.
Yeah.
So that changes a little bit of maybe the leverage Donnie could have.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to think it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think you said something that was really wise. The value might be better around the trade deadline than it would be at the draft.
Yeah. That's what I've always felt with goalies. Because then you got the other guy desperate to get that final piece, you know?
Well, it speaks to what New Jersey was trying to make real aggressive trades with probably Calgary and Markstrom. Calgary wasn't giving him away.
No. Because they knew they didn't have to.
They knew.
Yeah.
So it's to your point. I agree with you on that.
And by the way, a lot of reports, speaking of Markstrom, I'm glad you brought him up. A lot of reports out of Calgary right now saying that he had a powwow, so to speak, with Craig Conroy, patched whatever differences there may be there. He patched it up. They seem to be on the same page. So who knows if he's even still on the market? He might be staying there. We'll see.
Yeah, so, that's weird that a manager and a goalie would have a issue, but anything, who knows?
Who knows?
Goes on behind closed doors.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what goes on in the world of big time moving. You want to go to TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligations, customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Let's go to our questions on a Thursday afternoon as we tee up Game 5, Rangers-Panthers at MSG. What do we got? Randy Workman. What's going on, Randy? Jimmy and Pierre, is it safe to say James Reimer is not a playoff goalie?
I'm not going to take a run at him. I think he's a good organizational player. I don't think he's a starting goalie in a Stanley Cup playoff run.
Yep. I think that's well said. Well said. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. If Dallas loses Tanoff, this changes the outlook of this series. You're damn right, Jeff.
You're darn right it does, especially going back to Dallas. It does because they don't get they get last change, but the last change is a whole lot different. So the answer is yes, and we talked about that on Stanley Cup Central right away. How that was going to be a major issue.
I was watching when that was going on here. Yeah, and I'll tell you this too, Pierre. You can tell too throughout this playoff what I know he was just acquired at the deadline, so it could seem like a stretch when I say this, but he seems to have become one of the emotional leaders out there on the ice and on the bench for that team in the short time that he's been here. So there's so many different elements you're losing, so many wonderful elements you could be losing if he's out for an extended point.
He's always been like that. And what was really surprising to me when he left Vancouver and went to Calgary, and I was, different management at the time, obviously, he's a guy that broke in Quinn Hughes. Hughes played with Tanev, and they were really good together. And Tanev was really a leader, like a sage veteran mentor to Hughes in a lot of different ways. Now, Hughes doesn't really need that anymore, but that's when he went to Calgary. I was like, that's kind of weird because Chris is a really good player and a really good leader and a real honorable locker room guy. So I don't know what happened there, but I know one thing: if he's not playing for Dallas, it changes the series.
Yep. All right. Next question. Jason Logan, the Stars getting hit in the series by like double in each game. I find that moving the puck too much on the power play and not shooting on the net. I know it's close, but what do you think they need to do different?
Well, one of the things is I think that Edmonton's doing well as they're closing down lanes, and it's hard to get pucks through. Connor Brown's made a big difference. Janmark, you obviously saw last night, shorthanded makes a big difference. Their forwards are doing a nice job taking away passing lanes. And they're doing a real good job taking away the point shots. So I think it's like a team effort for Edmonton, but they're doing a good job taking away lanes and shooting avenues to the net.
And by the way, Randy, your question was fine. No need to apologize for it.
Yeah, don't apologize for that. No.
No way. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. I know the Rangers like running 3 righties on the power play. Good observation there, buddy. Zibanejad, Breadman, and Fox, but maybe getting Laugh in rotation would mix things up. Hey,
He's
why not?
playing on the first power play tonight.
Yep, there you go. There you go. So, Jeff, you're on to something there. All right, next question. Andrew P. Which team has the best prospect pool in the league? How do you see this changing after the draft?
Anaheim's really deep.
Mm-hmm.
Anaheim's got a lot. San Jose obviously is going to have a lot now too because of winning the lottery and Will Smith signing. Montreal's got some good stuff. I mean, there's, it's easier to talk about the teams that aren't very deep. There's a lot of teams that are stocked up pretty well. Dallas is another team that's stocked up well. Detroit is stocked up very, very well. Buffalo is stocked up pretty
Montreal's
solid.
getting there.
That's what we talked about. Yeah, Montreal's there. So there's some teams that are stocked up pretty well. And there are other ones that are not, and they know it. They know it. They know they're in trouble, and they've got to make some. So that's why, people marvel at the Chicago Islander trade when the Islanders, moved back 2 spots in the first round and in the second round, but they got the extra pick. They got the extra pick, not to use it at the draft, I don't believe. No. I think they got the extra pick to utilize it as sugar to trade it away to get NHL bodies into their lineup because the way their roster is built right now, I don't know if they're going to be good enough again next year to make the playoffs. And the general manager knows that. That's why that was a shrewd trade by Lou. Really shrewd trade.
And that's what Lou does, is shrewd trades. All right, next question. John Smith. Gentlemen, I'm dating myself, but I remember Doug Jarvis being a fantastic faceoff man. Him aside, who would you guys put in your top 3 faceoff men that you saw play such a key part of the playoffs? Well, that's a great question, John. And I'm too young to have seen Doug play. I covered him as a coach. I mean, Patrice Bergeron for me is tops. He's right there. Sasha Barkov, I'd put in there. Look at Trocheck sometimes is good. But, Bergeron's the best. Bergeron's the best. How about you, Pierre?
Bergeron and Kopitar in this era are really good.
Kopitar. How can I? Yeah, thank you very much.
No, that's okay. Crosby's really good on faceoffs. Trocheck is outstanding on faceoffs. I'm talking modern era now, folks. And then we'll go back to when I was really coaching. Ronnie Francis was outstanding. Brian Trottier was really good. Dale Hunter was extremely good.
Wow. Okay.
Bobby Smith was really good on faceoffs. Just trying to think. We went through.
How many people are saying Guy Carbonneau?
I was gonna tell him to slow down. I'm getting Carbo was good. Dougie Riseborough was really good. Dougie Jarvis was really good. Jean Beliveau, when I was a kid growing up, was really good. Watching him take faceoffs, he was good. Phil Esposito, when he wanted to and bear down, he was really good on faceoffs. So, I mean, it's unfair. Well, I had a guy, Mark Janssens, who was outstanding on faceoffs. Mark Janssens, really, really good faceoff guy. So, they're. I mean, to say the best, it's hard to say the best, but I'm just giving you names of guys that I thought were really good. But in this era, Bergeron and Kopitar probably right up at the 2 best guys right now, or back then.
Good stuff. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, if you were Don Sweeney, would you trade Allmark at the draft for a higher pick so you can get a center you're in dire need of? If you can, I think that's what we're trying to say. They definitely would love to do that, Randy, but I just don't know if it's going to be possible. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know either. Don't know what the market is. For goalies, we talked about it. Just that's why I said I threw this out to Jimmy. We did an exercise. I said, "What'd this guy go for? What'd that guy?" And all of a sudden, you start doing it, and you realize it's not nearly the return you thought.
No. It's like the Rodney Dangerfields of hockey players or the goalies right now. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. Okay, love the North American game, but do you think it's time to look at bigger ice surface? With bigger and faster players, the ice looks like it is getting smaller. Thoughts? I say you leave the ice just the way it is right now because I like the combination that you can have of European hockey and North American hockey at once. I think it's a good blend as it is.
I'm not a fan of big ice hockey, and I've seen too many games. I played in too many games. on it. Not a fan of big ice hockey. And the Finns do it better than anybody else. They're the only country that really has it. It's a hybrid rink. It's 200 feet long. It's between 90 and 93 feet wide. It's probably one of the reasons why the Finns that come over are the most physically prepared, because they are used to the more physical contact that Ron's talking about. I don't see owners being prepared to knock out a couple rows of seats, down low in all their arenas to make the rink 3 feet wider. I just don't see them doing that.
All right, next question. Andrew P., what team name do you guys like the most for Utah? Yeah, I saw. Apparently, they're getting close, Pierre. I don't know if you saw, but I guess Ryan Smith said that Yeti and Mammoth are two of the top choices.
I think the Mammoth would be good.
I think that's pretty cool.
I wonder if Amherst College will allow them to take the Mammoth name.
Oh,
that's their name.
Wow, interesting.
So I don't know if they do that or not. They used to be called the Lord Jeffs.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah.
They're not allowed to be called that anymore.
All right.
So they're called the Mammoths.
Huh.
I wonder if they would allow them to do that. That'd be number one. But I like the Mammoth. I think that's you have the Colorado Avalanche, big snow event.
Mm-hmm.
Got the Utah Mammoth.
Yep.
They're big. The name that I never could figure out, and I know why it is, the Utah Jazz moved from New Orleans.
And they just kept it, eh?
And they kept the name.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of jazz being played out there.
No. It's not a foundation of jazz. It's
they spent a lot of
one of the main swamps. Yeah. So I said this, Pierre, when they first moved there, when the news broke, I immediately said, given the fact that you couldn't get alcohol in Utah for the longest time, you know what one of the most popular jobs in Utah was? Bootlegging. How about the Utah bootleggers?
I'm not sure that's going to work.
I'm kidding. That will not fly in this world right now. But yeah. Anyhow, next question. Kathleen. Hey, Kathleen. How likely is Carolina to trade Natchez, for example, to Montreal with our new management team, considering their past history in the Bergeron era? And what's happening with KK right now?
So that is such a good question by Kathleen. I think they still don't have a GM, which I think makes it a little bit harder to make the deal if they want to make a deal. The other thing is, if they're going to run their business that way, where they hold personal grudges and it's going to limit the amount of teams they can make deals with, they're doomed to fail.
Yep.
So, if Montreal offers the best package of anybody and they don't have a problem trading them within the Eastern Conference, and do it if that's the best package. But it's a great point by Kathleen, because obviously there was serious friction between Bergevin and the people in Carolina. And that's why, they didn't – by the way, Carolina didn't do anything wrong. They played by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
They paid for the player.
Mm-hmm.
They had a mulligan. You think they wouldn't want to redo it?
Yeah, they just made a mistake. That's all.
Yeah.
It is what it is. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. So with U.S. college athletes earning money, do you think colleges will eventually get rid of scholarships? I don't think so, but you never know.
No.
I don't either.
And not in hockey, I don't know if we're going to be – the Big Ten will, because it'll be football money and basketball money. So, obviously Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State, Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if – Ohio State's in there too. I don't want to forget them. In hockey, Notre Dame plays in the Big Ten. Don't want to forget them. Those schools are all huge football schools, so there's money flowing through there and NIL money. I don't think scholarships disappear. I just, from having talked to a lot of coaches and athletic directors, I'd be absolutely shocked if scholarships disappear.
Could the seemingly inevitable CHL stuff coming, where they're going to be allowed to go to colleges, could that change that, Pierre?
I don't think so, because the money's still there. Again, Jimmy, my son's a scholarship athlete. He has been for the last 3 years, and he will be for his fourth year. And there's different programs now where those scholarship kids are actually getting cash.
Wow.
And it's not illegal at all. And they're getting cash because of NIL money or grant money, whatever you might think it is, but they're getting cash.
Wow.
So that's just something that's kind of become new. Most of it's for meal money, to be frank.
Right.
But it's still cash.
Yeah.
So, it's changed a lot since I played.
Yeah. Wow. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, safe to say Lundholm is the best bet for the Bruins in free agency. How much would you offer him? I think they're going to look at him for sure, Randy. They need a center. I wouldn't go past 5 years.
No, what would you do dollar-wise? So we agree on the term.
What's he at now? Wait a minute. Let's see what we got here. So he was getting. Well, he's going to want a bigger. He was only at 4.8. 6.75 to 7, somewhere in that range.
7 steep. I'm going to say 6 to 6.5, 7 steep.
Okay.
There was a couple of years where you'd say 7 was going to work.
Yep.
Now, so you do the comparable, and I'm sure his agents will have a good comparable that works for him.
Going the other way, yeah.
But I know the other side will do too. So it's a tough. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on negotiating contracts, but the comparable thing it's a significant research.
Yes, it is.
And it's way underrated in terms of how you can build your team. If you have the right people doing the research, or the research is done properly, I should say.
Exactly. And he does have a good guy in Evan Gold that will be doing that for him. That is for Don Sweeney. All right, next question. Andrew P. Who does Tampa move to make space for Stamkos?
Well, they just brought in Ryan McDonough, which I found really interesting because they knew they needed help on the left side, and they knew they missed McDonough's
leadership, yeah,
and his character. I don't know who they're going to move. I have no idea. I know they're not in a rush to not have Stamkos back. I know that. For sure.
You know what the buzz name is now?
No.
Genrot.
Tanner Jeannot is.
Tanner Jeannot, yes.
They brought – no, that's okay. Tanner Jeannot is a player they brought in from Nashville, and they overpaid for him, and they thought he was going to be this smash-mouth component that they needed to have to continue their Stanley Cup stuff because they were losing those players. You know, they lost Barclay Goodrow. They lost Blake Coleman. They lost Patty Maroon. You know, they lost Alex Killorn. They wanted to make sure that they had a little bit of the smash-mouth component, and he does have that. I just think he had the 1 year in Nashville where the offense was super high. And I'm not sure he could get to that level again. And so if they do move Tanner, it could open up some money for Steven. Steven's going to have to give him a hometown discount if he stays, he did the last time.
I think he will, though. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Final question, or we just have a comment? Let's see. Marvin Matthews, just want to thank you both for the consistent quality and intelligence you and your guests bring to each podcast. I haven't missed one yet. Thank you, Marvin. That means a lot. We appreciate it.
Marvin's so cool. I love the fact that he is so aggressive with his questions in a good way. And Jimmy, I had no idea about you. I had no idea that you knew who he was. That's pretty cool. Really cool. Really
I think we might have met through Mitch Melnick at one of his events one time. We'll have to see. He'll
Melnick events are fun.
Oh, they are. They are.
And they're good to go.
Except for the last one I was at when was that? The TSN 690 birthday party a couple years back.
I was there.
No, you missed it, Pierre. You missed it. You weren't able to make it. There was something happened because I had to deliver the news to Mitch that you couldn't make it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I'll tell you what.
What I went to, though, I remember because my next door neighbor from Connecticut drove up with me, and he had the time of his life.
So you'd be happy you weren't there because 21 of us, me included, came down with COVID from that party.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the party was great, though.
Here's a COVID story for you. We were on the road. We were playing in Florida and then in Tampa and then Philly just before Christmas.
So this is what season?
This was a 21-22, something like that. Yeah, 21-22. So just before Christmas. So the coaches, we all go out for dinner. We have a nice time. We're talking. And then one of the coaches, who will remain nameless, sees me the next morning in the gym, and he's like sniffling. And I go, "You all right?" He goes, "No, I'm not all right." I'm like, "Oh, no." So I did not stay in the gym. I went outside.
No offense. See you later.
And then the next day, or that day, we actually played Florida and beat them in Florida. And then right after the game, we flew to Tampa and played in Tampa day after that. And just before the Tampa game, everybody started to feel bad, but they were testing and they weren't testing positive. And then we went into Philly, and everybody was.
I remember this.
We got shut down. Everybody got smacked. All of us. We were all sick.
Yeah.
Anyways, we ended up the league. We played the game because we were there, and then Christmas break was starting. Except we got a 2-week Christmas break.
I remember that. Yep.
And I came home that night. I don't know what time our charter night. Let's say 1 a.m. I don't even know. My children and my wife were there at our place in Ottawa. And I walked in and I felt so bad because I hadn't seen the children. I was married to that job. I was there the whole time and they were in college. And I couldn't see them because the next morning I tested positive for COVID. They had to go to our house in Mont Tremblant, Quebec.
Yeah, you didn't want to get them sick.
So I didn't want them to, because Ryan had hockey and Justine had rowing. She was trying to qualify for the Olympic team. So I was just like, I'm staying right out of this. I'm not doing that. So I sat in my condo in Ottawa, I'm not kidding you, for 10 days. And the only thing that saved me, honestly, our equipment guys were amazing in Ottawa. They were so good. And they texted me and said, do you want groceries? I'm like, I don't feel sick, but I can't breathe. You know, I was having, so they kept bringing groceries over all the time. And I'd slip the money under the door and they would leave it at the door. They were such good guys.
You had your own Instacart. I don't know if you know what Instacart is, but
I have no idea.
Grocery delivery app. Yeah. So you had your own personal Instacart, Pierre.
Thanks for telling me that. I'm going to ask about that now. I had no idea what that stuff is. But it was good. All I did, Jimmy, I watched bowl games, World Junior till they stopped it.
That's right. The Worlds were on.
I watched World Junior till they stopped it.
Yep.
And I rode my Peloton. That's all I did for 2 weeks. That's all I did. It was ridiculous.
Thank God for Netflix during that whole time, huh? So Pierre, when I was coming home, is when it hit me. Like I'm driving, I'm heading to the border, and I'm starting to feel sick. This is the day after the party in Montreal, and it happened to be that weekend was 9/11. So security's a little extra tight at the border, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
And so they were doing the random, I think it must have been like every 10 to 12 cars, they're just pulling in, no matter what. You're just getting pulled over, you're getting searched, you got to go sit inside, whatever. So I'm sitting there in this traffic, and then I get up there, and all of a sudden I'm like, sorry, man, you're the guy. You got to go in there. And I'm feeling like something's going on. I do not feel right. I'm getting dizzy. And I go in there and I try to tell the guy, I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling too good. He goes, shut up and sit over there. And so I had to sit there for an hour waiting to get back in my car as I'm coming down with COVID. And I got home and I was sick as a dog. I went right to bed, and I had it for about 10 days too. But
so was that in Swanton when you crossed?
Yep.
Back to yeah.
And I hope they didn't get it. I mean, I tried to tell them I was sick, but that was a fun.
I find that to be a hospitable boarding crossing.
I like it. In general, it's pretty good.
It's a good place to cross. It's good.
And the guy he's like, hey, sorry, man, you're the guy. So I don't know. I wish you could go, but so anyhow, good stuff. Hey, listen, we want to thank Mollie Walker, the New York Post, for joining us here again. Always a pleasure to have her on. We'll definitely get her on again before the playoffs are over. Hopefully they're not over for her team soon. And I want to thank our production crew, and of course, thank Pierre. Thank everyone in the viewers section there for your great comments and questions and your support. We love it. We appreciate it. And like we said, we're going to have more details soon, but we are booking our travel, getting it all together to go to Vegas for the draft. So we're looking forward to that, doing a couple live broadcasts from Las Vegas at the end of June. We will have more details when they become available. But until then, and until tomorrow, this has been another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.